What's up, YouTube? So today I wanted to make a little quick guide of how to push your film. I seen some comments on my video where I push film 2 stops, and people were wondering, how do you push film? What is pushing film? So we're going to be breaking down exactly how do you push film, what kind of camera you need, and why would you push film in the first place. So let's talk about why you should push film, why people push film, why people pull film. In Hollywood, they would push and pull film to change the exposure, change the contrast, and change the colors of film stocks, depending on what kind of mood they wanted to create. There's films where they push the film if they want to create a more gritty and more contrasty look. It's because you leave the chemicals in longer or shorter. So when you leave it in longer, it's called pushing the film. When you leave it in shorter, it's called pulling the film. And so what you can do is change the colors, change the contrast. Primarily, I'm going to be covering pushing, but you could also use the same logic to, do it as a pull instead. So let's take a look at our camera. I've got a Nikon F2 here, and in order to push film, you're really going to want an SLR. You could do it with a non-SLR. You could do it with a point and shoot camera, but it'll be a little bit different. Technically, you'll be pushing it, but not in the same sense that you're pushing it with an SLR. And the reason is SLRs have an ISO dial, and the ISO dial is going to determine your metering and your exposure. And with a point and shoot camera, your metering is all automatic, your exposure is all automatic, and you can't control that aperture. So if you want to get a middle exposure and then push it, then you're not going to be able to do that. The fundamental practice of pushing is going to be lowering your metering by 1 stop and then pushing 1 stop in post. So what you're going to be doing is shooting all your pictures underexposed, and then you're going to be pushing them in the lab. And the way you meter for them to be underexposed is by pushing your film to be up by 1 stop or up by 2 stops, whatever it is. So in my video, I pushed Kodak Ultramax from 400 to 1600, and the results were really cool. I really love the results, and a lot of people love the results too, so you can check that video out if you want. But basically 400 to 600, that's 2 stops. So 400, 800, that's 1 stop. 800, 1600, that's another stop. And so you could always push half stops or quarter stops even, if you want to get really granular. But usually with the type of photography, if it's a hobby, it's probably not necessarily. That being said, you're going to want to lower your ISO by 1 stop and then push 1 stop in post. So when I shot that Kodak Ultramax, I was actually metering at 1600, but the film itself is only 400. Lower your exposure, whether that's with the ISO or that's with an app, and then shoot your pictures. And then when you go to the lab, make sure that you say, I want to push my film or I want to pull my film. And then also mention the number of stops. Now, not every lab is going to do this for you, so you might have to find a lab that specializes in stuff like that. But once you do it once or twice, it's pretty easy to get done. That is definitely what I do time to time. Coming up, I'm actually experimenting with movie film now. And movie film seems to be, very, very pushable, very pullable, which is different from, just normal picture film. So stay tuned for that video. I'll be pushing some movie film, probably to 1000 or 1200 ISO. And, we'll see what the results are, because on 500, I shot at night and it was pretty grain free. So yeah, hopefully you got a idea of how to push your film. It's really just that simple. There's not a big trick. So it can feel daunting though at times, because you don't know what it's going to do. I leave the chemicals in longer. I always leave my scanning up to a lab, but if you're someone who's a home developer, then you might have to look at a guide on how long specifically you need to leave your film in longer or shorter if you're. So hopefully that's helpful and you learned how to push your film, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.